Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. So I'm very happy to be visiting Buddha Bodhivana again. Just a 2-week visit this time. Unless, of course, I get locked down again. But very unlikely this time. Yeah, my last visit was supposed to be 6 weeks, and it was ended up 8 months. But it seems like the English weather has followed me a bit. But we have the good Dhamma to keep us warm. So here in Australia, tomorrow it is Mother's Day. So I thought I'd just share some of the Buddha's teachings about relating to parents. But in the Buddha's teaching, he doesn't say this is relating to how you relate to your mother, or this is how you relate to your father, but generally how you relate to your parents in general. And firstly, just to bring to mind that our especially mothers, what they went through to bring us into the world. I've never, as a man, had to give birth, but I hear it's pretty painful process. Yeah. So that's from the beginning. For what the mother has to endure through all the pregnancy and bring a child into the world. And then, when you're a child, you're very vulnerable. And you're looked after, fed, cared for, protected. So these are some thoughts to bring up, maybe just to bring up a sense of appreciation, gratitude for what our parents have given to us. Well, like the Buddha said, our parents are actually our first teachers as well. They bring us into the world, and they give us our initial understanding of how to relate to the world. And as a parent, this is very, with a child, it's a very significant impression of how the parents are around the child. And this is also why the Buddha relates the way to view a parent is like a Brahma god. Now, a Brahma god is somebody who manifests, loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, mudita, appreciative joy, and upekkha, equanimity. And, generally I would say a parent has metta for the child in terms of wants that child to be happy. Has karuna for the child, it doesn't want the child to suffer. And as the child grows up and maybe has success with some things, then the parent has appreciative joy. I mean, I don't hear much about parents being jealous of their child's achievements. And probably the more challenging one is for parents sometimes to be equanimous when we're misbehaving. I know I could upset my mother sometimes, but that's part of also growing up. This is why I see the Buddha said to contemplate parents as like a Brahma god, because they generally have this kindness and well-wishing for the child. And also being first teachers, a sense of respect. I mean, in Buddha's teachings, we're encouraged to, develop a respectful attitude towards our parents, our teachers, religious mendicants. And respectfulness is a very, very important quality from the Buddhist teaching. And the Buddha said, those who live without respect live unhappily. And when I consider respect to parents, it's not like we do everything that they say. For many, like monks and nuns, if the parents didn't want them to become monks and nuns. Because, especially in the West, it's something very strange to go forth as a monk or a nun. And, for the nuns, they shave their heads, and that really upsets some of the parents, But respect means you're willing to listen and talk, to lend a respectful ear to whatever our parents say to us. It's not that we have to agree, but just a sense of willing to listen without shouting or sort of reacting strongly or telling them they're stupid or being, having a disrespectful attitude. And now I have found actually with parents how they do sort of change their attitude when they see something good coming out of what we are doing. I remember just in the last few years, one monk, his mother looked very distressed. Doing this, hard to understand. Now she seems very happy about him being a monk. Comes to the monastery and meets the monks and very friendly and smiling, because they didn't really understand a lot before. So, I've found that a respectful attitude is one, just willingness to listen and not argue so much. In my early Buddhist years, I was quite a bit evangelical in a way, that I was wanting to convert everybody to Buddhism. And of course, top of the list is your parents, isn't it? And my father was not very religious and very politically minded, so we used to get in some arguments. I'd try to force my Buddhist views on him, and he'd try to force his political views on me. So we get into these sort of arguments, and it was, he wasn't very, respectful. And I remember I'd come away from visiting my parents, sort of with a not a very good feeling that we just got into arguments, with my father anyway. So I decided to change my tact a bit. I've made this determination. Just listen, but don't try to force anything back. Just be willing to listen. And also, instead of arguing, I started to look at things around the house I could help with. I'd learnt a few maintenance skills during my early days in the monastery, so I started to fix this and paint this and patch that up. And I think that said a lot. That said a lot. That sort of, doing something to help them rather than trying to force anything on them. I think that really influenced them to have more appreciation for what I was doing. Of course, through the monk's life and meditation, I was a bit more peaceful at home than I used to be. I was very restless as a teenager, to ball and chain me down to do my homework. But one example says a lot, actually. And over the years, then they started to more come to visit the monastery. So my mother more interested actually in Dhamma than my father, so she often came to stay at Amavati, and she had some good experiences there. And she even came to Thailand with me a couple of times, and met some of the great teachers of Thailand, Luang Por Liam, Luang Por Nam. When we went to Mapjana, Luang Por Kalyana was there before he came to Australia. He took us out one day to visit a monastery of Luang Por Somchai. It was an interesting monastery because it had all these old Chinese antique furniture in the monastery, so it's an interesting place to visit. But it had all these nice wax images, wax images of monks, famous monks as well. And I thought it was nice that I reciprocated a little bit because Luang Por Kalyana's mother came on a weekend retreat, I taught Amavati, so I thought that's good, I can offer something back to his mother because he looked after my mother. So, not getting into arguments anymore. Over the years with my father, we just learned to share our different opinions. He'd look at it this way, I said, well, I see it that way. and at the end of the day, we were good friends. I mean, my father and mother passed away now, but at the end of the day, we were good friends. Especially with my father, because we did argue a lot at certain times in our life together. But mother was more easygoing, her idea was as long as I'm happy doing what I'm doing, that's the important thing. So she didn't have any big ambitions for me to be a prime minister or anything like that. As long as I was happy doing what I was doing. So that was one blessing, that I didn't have a lot of demands on being something I didn't want to be. But that is something to also understand in terms of, like I was saying before, a parent can have metta and karuna for the child, but they maybe have a different idea about what will make you happy, or what will release you from suffering, than the ideas we have. So maybe the world is about, getting a job, getting a good career, making money, this sort of thing, this is what you'll be happy. But I couldn't see life in that way. But one can appreciate that they are, I think, from their perspective sometimes, what they think you need to be happy is different from yours. So that's something you just have to understand. And the proof is in if you do find happiness, if you find a way of living and life that makes you happy, even if it isn't what they recommended, then if they see that, then they can see things in a different way. So I feel through one's practice of Dhamma, and the way we benefited from the practice of Dhamma really does spill over into affect our parents. When I'd stopped getting into arguments, when I visited them, I'd always have a book to read. It was in the days before you had tablets and this. And I remember I had this book, For Refuge, by a well-known monk called Bhikkhu Bodhi. So I had this when I went home. And I think I went out to visit friends or something, and I left this book. My father picked it up, began to read it, and he really liked what he read. Yeah, not trying to force anything, just left it there, and he picked it up. He said, well, quite good ethical teachings here. Talked about the refuges and precepts and the meaning of them. And parents are interested in what we're doing. And even though maybe they might not in one way agree with what you're doing, but they are curious. They will be curious about, why are you doing this? And what is this Buddhist teachings about? They will sort of look into it. So the Buddha said, the greatest gift we can give is the gift of Dhamma. There is quite a strong simile that the Buddha gave about what we can do for our parents. And the simile begins that if you carried your mother and father on your shoulders for 100 years, and you're carrying them all the time, and even urinating and defecating on you, it wouldn't repay the debt you owe your parents. And quite a strong analogy. Yeah? But then the Buddha didn't leave it at that. But he said there is a way you can repay your parents. And this is, if you can encourage what the Buddha called the treasures of the heart into your parents, then this is how you can repay them. So the first one is if your parents don't have faith, then you arouse faith in your parents, saddha, in the teachings, in the practice, then that is a great gift. If you can arouse virtue in your parents, when the aspects of their life is not so virtuous, then that is a great gift, a great treasure. If you can encourage generosity, self-sacrifice, the word for this is chaga. It's not like dana, it's chaga, because it means also. It can mean making offerings, but it also means about doing things to help others, doing charitable work, the things that can help other people. So if you're going to help them to let go of stinginess or selfishness, to be generous or help others, that's also a great gift you can give to them. And then wisdom. If your parents are a little foolish, if you can arouse wisdom in their hearts, this is also a great treasure for them. And wisdom is about the understanding of how to live one's life that promotes good things and abandons unwholesome things. To have that understanding of what leads to good things and what leads to unskillful things. So knowing the way to lead one's life. And then the wisdom of the Four Noble Truths. You know, people have their suffering, parents have their suffering. If you can help them to see through the causes of suffering and abandon those causes so they find more peace of mind, then, you know, that's the gift of wisdom. So when my father especially got older, you know, memory, he worried about memory going and this and that. And just to say, look, Father, it's the nature of old age. You know, things, the faculties naturally deteriorate. And just saying something like that just helps them to sort of more accept the nature of old age. Just to, just to offer that sort of Dhamma reflection. And then maybe they have some suffering from some other member of the family, and you can talk to them about that. And, you know, people have to live their karma. Some people have a smooth passage in life, some people don't. So just a way you can talk with parents in a way that can help them to be more at peace with the way things are and less suffering is, you know, to arouse some wisdom in them. So these are really the best gifts, you know. The highest gift is the gift of Dhamma, because that brings more of a long-term sense of peace and happiness. Where, you know, you give them a nice car, they'll be happy for a while, but after a while it's back to other worries and concerns. And, you know, material gifts, the happiness levels it doesn't last so long, where the gift of Dhamma can be more of a sustained level of happiness for them. And especially if they do have if they really really get into Dhamma practice. So my mother had some quite peaceful experiences of meditation and staying in the monastery. She went on a retreat with Luang Por Sumedho and got some benefit. And an interesting story that she went on a holiday with a couple of her friends, and same age group. They're all in their 60s then, I think. And she wasn't my biological auntie, but I used to call her my auntie because mother's friend, you know. And they were on the plane journey coming back, and I think the pressure in the plane affected one of my aunties, and some blood vessel or something, and her eye began to swell up, and she was really getting into a panic. And my mother said, "Oh, just relax, just breathe in and out. You know, got her to meditate." and she calmed down. And even my auntie said after, "Your mother saved my life." You know? So, you know, it's, you know, the effects of Dhamma practice can, you know, it goes out, doesn't it? It goes out to not just your parents, but also to your other relatives. Like ripples in a pond that go out. Of course, this is one of the Buddha's one of the greatest blessings, is to look out for parents and support them in the ways you can. in the Mangala Sutta. So these are things that I've reflected on in terms of related to my parents, in terms of, reflect on gratitude and respect, cultivate a respectful attitude, and then, try to encourage them in terms of having faith in spiritual teachings. Doesn't have to be Buddhism, but some sort of faith in wholesomeness, virtue, generosity, and wisdom. So these are, let's say the Buddha called these great treasures because these are things that really benefit one more than sort of material wealth, external things. And of course also there's things we can do when our parents have passed away. So we have the tradition of making offerings on anniversaries, birthdays, days of passing away, making offerings. Or just when a parent has passed away. This is a way we can, a gesture of expressing our gratitude and appreciation for them, even when they're not around anymore. And, the Buddha said in some circumstances it actually benefits them. It's a bit unknown how it will benefit them, but the Buddha said that to make offerings to our passed away relatives is better than, really more useful than grieving over them. And maybe that's part of it too, when we do something wholesome in the memory of our parents. It maybe brings more a sense of gratitude than grief, and more accepting of our loss, and a sense of appreciation and wishing them well on their ongoing journey. So Mother's Day is a time to reflect on these sort of themes. And if we can be with them, then how to be with them in a skillful way. Gestures of appreciation, gifts, remembering what they've done for us. And if they have different opinions from us, then, listening respectfully. So I think I'd like to just offer these thoughts this evening.